This podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
I'm Chuck Norris, and I approve this game.
Between the time when gamers played with miniatures and chainmail and the rise of the Wizards of the Coast, there was an age of advanced role-playing undreamed of. And onto the Skygax, destined to bear the jeweled crown of TSR upon a troubled brow, it was given to teach us all how to roll for initiative.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
The Roll for Initiative Podcast, Volume Number 3, Issue 134. This is 2014. It's the new year. DM Vince sitting here alongside the undisputed WWE Heavyweight Champion, DM Matt.
Hello, everyone.
Our Intercontinental Champion, DM Nick.
Hi.
And our United States Champion, DM Chad.
Yo.
And I am Vince McMahon. No, I don't know. Whatever. So it's the first show, 2014. Yeah, I ran out of belts at that point, since they consolidated two of them recently. Yeah, I'm talking wrestling. Ha ha, all you people hate it. Good. Anyway.
What, you didn't want the Divas title?
No. That's as much as a joke as the ECW title was at the end, so. Anyway, Matt, you haven't been around. What have you been doing?
Not a whole lot of gaming, just a lot of social stuff. A friend had a book release party, and then there was a Christmas party. So, yeah, my gaming life's been kind of sad. Social life's been fairly well, so nothing exciting.
Well, we've all had a good Christmas and a good New Year's, so we're in 2014, folks. Not really.
Yay! Sure.
Yeah.
It's too early to tell.
Yeah. Okay, so we're recording this before New Year's Eve?
We're time-traveling podcasters. We are talking to the future right now.
Yes.
Hello, future people.
Hello, future people. That is correct. Stole that from the Order 66 podcast.
Not that I ever listen.
No one listens to the Order 66 podcast because, I don't know. So, we have nothing really to talk about. Chad, do you have anything you want to tell us?
Well, for Christmas, I know Santa is bringing me the new deluxe white. They reissued Wizards of the Coast reissued the the white box rules in a very nice wooden case, and I believe Santa is bringing that for me along with the original box set of the Pace Setter Chill rules. Because I've been a very good little DM this year.
You mean he already brought it to you, right?
As far as I know, I paid for it. I mean, Santa made it. No, it's under the tree.
Dare Santa?
Can't wait to open it up and see what I got.
You already opened it up. This is 2014, remember?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was great. I loved it. I'll play it again and again.
Yeah. Chill. I have one version of Chill. I don't have a box set. I just have a book. I didn't know there was a box.
You probably have the one. It's got like a, I don't know. It looks like a zombie superhero actually on the front of it. It's that blue kind of book with that kind of wild art with the face on it.
Oh, I got the original box set right here.
Mine's black. It says Chill on the side. It's in my shelf. I see it from here.
Okay. Well, the Pace Setter one is kind of a brownish box, and it has a picture.
Brownish box. I got it right here. It's got a picture of a dude like in a cemetery.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the one that I've been really wanting to get my hands on, and I decided that this year Santa would let me get my hands on it.
I have it right here.
So I'm excited. I'm going to run it at GaryCon doing a Kolchak the Night Stalker adventure. I think that'll be very fun. I hope.
Okay. So
I'll even do the whistle. Okay, keep going.
I had to get the book, so yeah. It's I don't know. It says Chill.
Yeah. No, they Pace Setter sold the rights to the game, and I forgot the name of the company.
Oh, mine's Mayfair.
That's it. Mayfair picked it up, and so they put out a different edition. But I'd always heard good things about the original pace setter version, and so I really wanted to get it, and I'm hoping that during GaryCon that I can get Bruce Hurd to come and sign it, since I believe he was the art director on that box set.
Cool. I don't know who did this one. Looking at the inside of it, I've never actually opened it. I just bought it and put it on the shelf.
Yeah, it's a great game genre. You know, it's not Cthulhu. It's more like traditional monsters, vampires, werewolves, ghosts, that sort of thing. So I thought, what better game to put Kolchak into than Chill?
And it still has the original pamphlet in the beginning that says, read this first. So, I don't know how I did that. But it's pretty cool. Anyway, we have a show to do. Enough about Chill.
Exactly.
Chill out.
I'll put my box of Chill away. Bye.
Chill.
Chilling on Chill.
I don't know. So, let's over to Sage Advice.
Sage Advice.
Sage Advice. We have some emails and we have a voicemail this week. If you'd like to call in, 570-865-4210, the hotline. You can call and talk as long as you want. Leave a message. Just don't make it 10 minutes, we don't those. But feel free to ask a question, or if you want to write us, rfistaff@gmail.com. You can visit us on the forums, osrgaming.org. Find us on Facebook, RFI Podcast. Facebook.com/RFI Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, but it's not really updated much. It just releases new shows. That's mostly what it's used for. If you're waiting for an announcement and you're one of those people that just sit on Twitter updating every 140 characters, I believe it is.
Yeesh.
And have to
I've never really understood that whole thing.
Well, some people have to tell everybody what they're doing, so not that there's anything wrong with that, but,
Yeah,
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
It's amusing to reach out to like famous people and actually have them like interact with you that you normally wouldn't otherwise. So
yes, it's very fun reaching out, especially to football quarterbacks, and saying and having them tell you shut up. But anyway,
yeah. or getting blocked by geek icons.
Shut up. I can't help it. He sucks anyway.
We won't go there.
He doesn't even know who I am. He probably just saw some bad comment, blocked me, and doesn't even know who the heck I am anymore. So it doesn't matter.
Would it be a particular person that we know?
Yes.
Who actually recorded a bumper for our show?
That was before he blocked me, and I said the insulting things.
Oh.
He's a bandwagon jumper. I don't care. He is.
And the views of events do not express the actual thoughts of the role.
Yeah, and I actually happen to have an autographed shake weight signed by that person.
Yes, I heard that was kind of creepy when they signed it.
Felicia Day was really creeped out by it and was really looking to not sign it until I used peer pressure by showing that the other person had already signed it, at which point she did. Begrudgingly did. And then
what is a shake weight? If I might
Google
reluctantly ask.
Just Google it.
Okay.
And yes, so I have a glorious picture of me and Felicia Day where it's like she's kind of leaning in, but you're like, I really don't want to be here. And me smiling, holding the shake weight that she just signed.
Felicia Day. That's all I have to say. I don't say I dislike her, but I don't like her. She's not one of my top 10. I think she's okay. I don't know. Some people were obsessed with her.
We could go down a whole rat hole on geekdom and their need for celebrities to feel accepted, but that's best for a podcast that doesn't talk about first edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Absolutely right. So our first voicemail comes in from guess who? Guess who, Nick?
DM Kojo?
Yes.
Yes. What do I win?
A no prize.
You win a Marvel prize.
Awesome.
But it's actually never going to show up, and
that's okay. That's how Marvel did it for decades.
Well, they're not going to acknowledge the fact that you got one either. So
okay, great. Well, at least we're consistent.
Well, mute your mics, and here comes the voicemail.
Hello there, guys. It's DM Kojo calling. Hey, just wanted to throw a question out there that comes up from time to time in my games, and I guess I've never seen a ruling on it, specifically how it's supposed to be handled. But what do you do when your characters enter a room and there's some kind of bad guy in the room, some kind of monster, and do you describe the room first and then do the combat? Or do you do the combat first and then describe the room after they defeated the monster? My thought is there might be things in the room that can help during the encounter. So do you describe it? But do they really have time to examine the room if there's something in the room that's trying to kill them? So I was just curious how you guys play that when the players enter a room where there's some kind of creature there. So any thoughts on that are much appreciated. Thanks much. Bye.
Well, thank you, DM Kojo. My philosophy on that is I don't describe anything unless the players actually look around during the combat because they're focused on the combat. That's just how I work things. What about you, Nick?
I pretty much do the same thing. It really depends on the situation. If there's like a thief sneaking into the room, I'll probably describe the room to him if he's hiding in shadows. But I mean, if it's something like they open the door and there's like a bunch of orcs, I'd say, okay, there's like a dozen orcs there. Roll initiative.
Looking around. I mean,
right? Then I would probably do like you two do like each segment for whoever it is. Okay, what are you doing? And if they say, hey, I'm looking around the room. Okay, during your action, this is what you see, and that's what I would do. So, majority of the time, it would be like you said, combat first, and then descriptions later.
And we'll go over to Chad. What about you, Chad?
Well, I take a little bit different tact on that one, I guess, than you guys. I mean, I give a basic description of the room, and then, of course, I mentioned that there is a screaming horde of orcs in there at the very end of it. But the idea behind it is, you go into, if you walked into a room and there was somebody there getting ready to attack you, you're not like in limbo and the only thing there is that guy. Obviously they know if they're in a small room or a large room. They know if they're in what looks to be a kitchen or a feast hall, or royal chamber, or something like that. Now, I don't give them detailed analysis of the room. I don't talk about the pattern on the curtains. I don't talk about, the third drawer to the right is open. But, I say, okay, they say, all right, you pick the lock and the door opens. And what you see before you is a long hallway. And at the end of that hallway, there is a giant spider and it is already starting to rush towards you. Now, there could be a lot more to that long hallway, but it's enough for them to know that they're in that they have opened a door to a long hallway and there's a spider at the end of it. I might mention, how the ceiling is roughly about, I don't know, maybe 10 feet tall and 10 feet high. The hallway is about 5 feet wide.
It's a lot.
But that's something they would know. You got to give them what they would know.
I disagree because having actually trained in combat situations.
Oh, okay.
Well, they're going to know they're in a hallway, though. I mean, they're not going to think they're in the lavatory.
The dimensions. They're not going to know.
You don't have to give them the exact dimensions. You might say roughly 10 feet high, 5 feet wide, and there's a spider at the end, and it's rushing
towards you.
towards
You're in a hallway. You see a dozen orcs. Roll initiative.
Okay, I could go that. I could go that round. I mean, I could go that far. But I would definitely tell them, the general description of the room or the environment that they've just entered. Because, if they turn around and say, well, am I in a hallway or am I in a bedroom? And I turn around and say, well, you don't know. You only know that, they would know. If you walk in, you're going to know the general.
If you're going to do that, it's got, in my opinion, it's got to be as general as possible.
And you can keep it general. You can just say you're in a hallway. You're in what looks to be a bedroom.
Right.
I mean, the big bed over there kind of gave that clue away.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure.
But
you're in the kitchen. How do I know? Because there's like pots and pans and there's a big fireplace in the corner.
But do they know that the third cabinet to the right is slightly ajar and there's a wand in it? No, they don't know that. They're going to need to dispatch the opponent and then do a search. But prior to that, I'll give them a general description of where they are, and then I end it with, oh, and by the way, there's this, and it's about to attack you. What do you do?
Oh, you just do it the opposite. You'll throw the monster at the end of the description.
Yeah, exactly. I give them a base description of where they are, and then I let them know this is what is now happening.
Well, all right. So we have a difference of opinion there, and let's go over to Matt.
I actually do it similar to how Chad does it. I will give them a brief rundown of what the room is. They open it up. You see the walls are lined with bookshelves, and there's a giant horde of kobolds hanging out in there for no reason. So it's yes,
we're split down the middle. There you go.
Yep.
So not everyone agrees with me automatically because I podcast there.
We agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Yes. This will be the blood feud that splits the podcast in half.
That's right.
No, it's the cleric issue that's always been the split.
It actually reminds me of the old Kids in the Hall skit where they had the 20 old women, and they go, "We're 20 old women who agree to disagree."
How about this? I'll bake you a cake. Remember that one? That was
that one.
The guy was supposed to go to Vegas. Never mind. It's Kids in the Hall. Cares.
Okay.
Anyway, so let's go on to our emails. If you're a Kids in the Hall fan, I do apologize. Go watch the show. It's great. First one comes in from Vander. He says, "Hey guys, I recently discovered your podcast. I have to say how much I enjoyed listening to episode 132. I will be scouring through your earlier issues to listen to some more 1E AD&D goodness." So he's a brand new fan. Listened to one episode and got hooked. That's awesome.
First one's free.
Mm-hmm. The rest are like Pringles. You just can't stop.
Right. Heroin. If you're not hooked in a week, your money back.
After a 25-year hiatus from AD&D, I recently started DMing a Greyhawk campaign with some new raw recruit players.
Nice.
And your Roll for Initiative podcast will certainly give me inspiration in running the campaign. Game on, Vander.
So Vander, you got to look back on our previous episodes where we talked about World of Greyhawk.
Yeah, there's quite a few of them we did, right?
Yeah, there's some really yummy, crunchy, gamey goodness there.
With butter.
With a thick, chewy nougat center.
Matt agreed with that big thump of the microphone.
Yes.
Thump.
And thought he died. He heard chewy nougat all over.
Yeah, this is definitely the first show of 2014.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
we're off to
it's
a
like we
running
forgot how to
start.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yes,
Matt,
they got our
2 weeks off and forgot how to podcast.
This tech stuff works so well.
Yes.
2 weeks off, forgot how to podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vander. Please continue listening. If you have any more questions, feel free to write in. Go to the forums, join in on the fun, osrgaming.org. Next one comes from DM Dan, and he has 3 questions for each of us hosts. So I'll read off the questions, and then we'll go around to see what everybody says about the answers. Starting, love the podcast, especially with the addition of DM Chad.
Hey, you got 2 fans now, Chad?
Yeah.
I'm on a roll.
The podcast is reinvigorated, and has some energy and enthusiasm as the older podcast had. So what? During the one... Never mind. I have 3 fun questions for each of the hosts. Okay. Question number 1. We surveyed... No, kidding. What is your favorite old school published magazine by TSR? Either AD&D... Oh, let me back that up. What is your favorite old school published module by TSR? Either AD&D or BX? So we'll start with Matt.
Oh, favorite old school module.
First edition or before?
First edition or before?
Mm-hmm.
I actually enjoy the Tomb of Horrors.
Tomb of Horrors.
Yes.
Okay.
I enjoy the... I may not necessarily run it as exactly like Tomb of Horrors, but doesn't mean I won't steal some stuff from it and just torture my players.
Ooh. And Nick.
Wow. I was gonna say the Against the Giants series, but I really I really have a soft spot for Against the Cult of the Reptile God. I don't know why, but I love that adventure. I love that module.
Okay.
Because it just for me, it has a little bit of everything in it. It's got the town, it's got the dungeon, it's got a little bit of a wilderness exploration going on. So I think it's got great bits of everything in there. I love it.
Good. Gotcha. And Chad.
Well, I'm actually kind of torn. I like my two favorite, I guess I'll say then, because I am actually torn on this one, is Lost Caverns of Sajkamp
Mm-hmm.
and In Search of the Unknown.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
I love In Search of the Unknown. That's my nostalgia one. That was the first module that I ever played in, and even before the Keep On the Borderlands was In Search of the Unknown.
It's like your first love. You never forget it.
You never forget it. But
Yeah.
but Lost Caverns is plot wise, just everything I guess you'd say that makes the writing of a module good. I like Lost Caverns of Sajkamp. But
Yeah, that's a
for
good one.
pure versatility, you can turn Search of the Unknown into anything you want it to be. It's probably, in my opinion, the most versatile module ever created.
Okay. Cool. Let's see. Mine would have to be Into the Forest, or I can't even say that with a straight face. Sorry, I can't say that with a straight face. End meaning nitwit. Anyway, so no, I like B4 The Lost City. That's probably one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool one too.
Oh yeah,
I really love that one. And just whenever I tell people for a module that's to go for, it's always B4. I love B4.
That one's it's very pulp kind of like in its feel, I guess. Kind of like Conan the Barbarian kind of thing.
Okay, second question is, what is the longest run player character you have ever played in either basic or AD&D from the beginning, meaning started at first or second level? Ooh. And what level did they attain? We'll start with Chad.
Oh, yeah, that one's I've mentioned him actually when we did the Magic, we did the podcast on Magic. That was Ahriman, Ahriman. Who I later found out was an actual evil god in Indian mythos, I think. But he was a magic user, started out neutral, actually started out good. And he over the years, he kind of went the way of Raceland, I guess. He went kind of neutral. And by the end of the run, he was, I believe, something like 17th, 18th level. And he was lawful evil, and I always had a ball playing him. He wanted to be a god, and he was a megalomaniac, and just lots of fun to play.
Cool. Matt.
Well, thinking back, I've come to realize that I've never actually played in a long first or basic campaign. I was always the DM. Yeah, I've only got to play one-shots, and it just hit me. I'm like, wow, what is wrong with you? You've lived such a poor, pathetic life that you've never actually been a player in a first edition campaign.
Yes, go hang your head in shame right now.
I shall. I shall go shun myself.
Shunned. You're shunned.
Quick, hit his wire so he can't talk anymore. Jeez. Okay, Matt is no longer with us now, so Nick, what do you think?
Gosh, longest run characters. I got two of them I could think of. One is Dengar. He's a fighter.
Cool.
And I think he had attained like 9th level. I'm just going off the top of my head as I recall. And the other one is a magic user by the name of Nicodemus. And he got up to 11th level.
Cool.
And I think he died in Tomb of Horrors.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tomb got him.
Yeah. Big surprise, huh?
Yeah. Right.
Tomb got him. It was the it was that statue, the 4-armed gargoyle.
Yikes.
Yeah. Oh well.
Well, the longest character I ever played got to 10th level, and mostly I DM like Matt does, but when I did have a chance to play, I did play a fighter that turned Cavalier, Sir Ashton of Blackmore, and he actually turned out to be a really stupid knight, as in, like, just became dumb. Because I had fun with another character in the group who was playing a paladin, and his name was Xander with an X. And we became the two dumb paladin/knight in the group. So the guy would say, "We need you to go to the north to find," and we would just ride off to the north.
I didn't even hear the rest of the sentence.
No, I didn't. And then there was this one time someone was DMing. It wasn't the Great Joe DM. It was someone else. Our friend who was her name was Stephanie. She was DMing for the first time, so we decided to go double the annoyance on her. And she was like, "Head to the north and seek him out." So we ran to the north, seeking out Seekium. So we ran to the temple. We were supposed to go screaming, looking for Seekium inside the temple. So that's some of the stupid things that we've done.
Well, I should say that my character only got to the level that he got to because he was played in a series under 3 different DMs over time. But yeah, to get to 10th level in a single campaign, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
When you're younger and you just give experience points out like candy, it's very easy.
Yeah, well, when Araman first started out, it was we were quite a bit younger at that time in his very early days, so I'm sure he had a jump start there.
Young and innocent Chad.
Yes, but then we hit college and I started hitting better GMs. And life became much harder for him.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question he has, do you have a favorite gaming world that you prefer to play in? I'll start this one. I think probably out of all of them I'm going to say Dragonlance is probably one of my favorites, or Ravenloft if you want to count, even though it's not a first edition setting. But it's pretty much close to Dragonlance. So, Nick, what about you?
I like World of Greyhawk. It's my favorite.
Figure.
Hands down. Yep.
The Chad, you're probably a Greyhawker too, right?
Greyhawk, that's one I was actually thinking about just now. But Greyhawk's one of my favorite, but I think it just gets tipped out by the Gazetteers.
Oh,
I love the Gazetteer worlds. I mean, they're so well. If you can get your hands on the original various Gazetteers, they were, in my opinion, the best documented of all the campaign settings TSR ever put out.
I got a question about those real quick. Would those be easily ported over to AD&D?
Oh yeah, we used them for AD&D. Actually.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was the world Araman lived in, and that's why he tried to become a god through the Radiance. But
I'm gonna have to look into those.
They're excellent. They're excellent. I'd suggest Alphatia is really a good one. I'd probably start with Thaisha or Alphatia. Those are probably 2 of my favorite ones.
Okay, cool.
And Matt?
For me, I actually really enjoyed Waterdeep and the Forgotten Realms because I just love that city system box set they put out. That box set with all the maps and just it's like, it's a great box set. And if you play in Waterdeep, I don't care what edition, get that box set. It is like a miniaturized version of the Invincible Overlord when it comes to details of that city.
Wow.
It doesn't quite lay out every building, but it tells you the main ones and where they are and what part of town, and it gives you the rules of the land and what the punishment is for different crimes and different levels of crimes, and it's just so detailed that you can really make Waterdeep feel very unique rather easily because it's only like 90-some pages compared to some of the massive giant tomes that were released later because it didn't get bogged down into the deep history. It was just, this is the city, these are the people in it, and these are the laws of the land. So I like that.
Well, it's interesting, too, because by the time they came out with Waterdeep and were really focusing on the Forgotten Realms, they're really hitting a period of time when TSR was doing a lot more detail in their game worlds as opposed to when they were doing Greyhawk, which at that time they weren't really putting that kind of detail into the world. So, yeah, can totally see Waterdeep being a very detailed box set.
Yeah.
Cool. And thanks and keep up the great work from DM Dan. Thank you, DM Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
The last one comes from the Dead No Save is his name. And this is in reference to Volume 1, Issue number 21, about evil PCs that we did way back in the day.
Ooh, boy, I got to step in the Wayback Machine here.
He says, I'm not getting why people seem to be against playing evil PCs. The point of role-playing games, and he puts that in very large capital letters, is to be someone you're not, capital letters. I don't raise undead or rob travelers or plot to destroy the world, despite what my teachers used to tell my parents. Ha. Anyway, I come from a school of who cares what the stats are or powers you get. Just role play the heck out of your character no matter what. People seem to crap all over playing evil characters. Even if you are playing one evil PC in the party, read. I am not the guy who always has to be the evil PC who's effed up the good party. But if you're not a first-time player, then don't act like a 9-year-old. It could be one of the most fun things to play. Sorry for the rant, just my 2 cents. Thanks for putting on the work in the podcast that you do, and thank you and respect to you all. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the main problem is if you have a mix of good and evil PCs, it encourages inter-party conflict of the characters, and at which point that could easily spill over into you're no longer having conflict among the characters, but now you're having conflict among the players.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people frown on it. If everyone's evil, then you can go and be evil together. It's kind of like the game White Wolf made, Human-Occupied Landfill. If your party hasn't killed each other within the first 30 minutes of playing, you're playing it wrong. It's a horrible, vile, nasty game that encourages very evil, debaucherous behavior. And that's what could happen if you have the wrong mix of players. When you throw in an evil PC and some good PCs, or even all evil, they start getting a little too chaotic and just causing a little too much conflict. Instead of having the story be the driver, it's the interpersonal relations of the party that's driving the story at that point, because they're constantly trying to backstab each other. It all depends on the type of evil character you're playing.
That's true, because I did play a lawful evil character, assassin, posing as a merchant in my last face-to-face group for the longest time, and screwed over the group many times, but they didn't know it was me. I just played lawful evil and stuck to the role.
Right. You can be evil, but still work alongside good deceptively, and you're still moving a story along, as opposed to just chaos in the party. Everyone's stealing from everyone. Everyone's hacking at everyone.
Well, I would definitely say chaotic evil wouldn't work good in a party full of good people. So
right, yeah, that would just be bad, very bad. And then, especially depending on what your classes are, if you have a paladin. Yeah, that chaotic evil character he would be, why am I standing next to this evil person? There better be a good story reason why he has to cooperate at that point and not smite him on the spot.
Another good thing about paladins that we probably never really touched upon, I think we might have, of paladins detecting evil. Now, if a character's in the group that's evil, do you guys think that the paladin, as soon as he detects evil, would automatically detect that person?
Yeah.
Or
absolutely
detect him because he's not doing an evil act.
No, it doesn't matter the act.
Evil's
it's the alignment of it's the alignment of the character.
Okay,
right,
Chad,
right.
Otherwise,
okay. I mean, obviously, I have no problem with evil characters PCs, because I played one for a long time. Actually, 2 if you count my paladin, who during the glacial rift of the frost giant Jarl spit on the altar of the elder elemental god and was promptly turned lawful evil. That was a fun one. It's in the module. But anyway, I think you hit on it very well, Vince. When you said chaotic evil is one thing, lawful evil is another thing, because lawful evil gets a bad rap, and people don't always understand lawful evil. Lawful evil, you could have a king of a who is lawful evil, and he could be a very effective king.
Mm-hmm.
Crime will be very low. He will rule with an iron fist.
Yeah.
But you may have low crime. Laws, they may not be totally fair, but they will be enforced and they will be consistent. They get a bad rap. Lawful evil is the one evil alignment that could very easily work within mainstream society. Now, barring a paladin in the party who sees his, your PC's lawful evil aura, and knows that despite your actions, you are lawful evil. Barring having that guy in the party, they can work very well in a party. They're not out to screw the party. Lawful evil is not about screwing everybody every chance you get. Lawful evil is about adhering to a code, but doing so always thinking of yourself first.
Right there, it's an alignment of might makes right.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're lawful selfish.
It's a very Darwinian alignment. It's survival of the fittest when it almost with lawful evil. It's like, yes, there are laws and everything, but there's a pecking order. There's unlike chaotic evil where everybody's out for themselves.
Well, chaotic evil simply lacks the self-control or
and
the
order.
Foresight that because let's face it. When you say lawful evil, you have to look at both words, right? You're evil, but you're lawful. That means you exhibit self-constraint, and you're probably a forward-thinking person who adheres by a set of codes, right? Whereas, chaotic evil is just that. They're evil, but they're also chaotic. They have no self-control.
Right.
Right. They act. They're very spontaneous. They act. They're very impulsive. They're impulsive and they're evil, and that's a bad combination for any party because they act on impulse, and their impulse is always to do whatever they think at the time. The short term is good for them. So they might not be, but then you got to also take other things into account. What is the character's wisdom? What's his intelligence? Is he, if he's got
a character class too?
Yeah, if he's a smart character and he's chaotic evil, if he's got a wisdom of 18, he's not going to be so unwise as to kill off his whole party before they go in and face the big baddie.
Right.
Because then he'd be facing.
Yeah,
himself, or he's not going to get the treasure that he's probably there to get anyway. So again, how impulsive is chaotic evil? Look at their wisdom. Wisdom's not a dump stat that everybody thinks it is. Wisdom, in many ways, is your constraint. Yeah, charisma is. But seriously, your wisdom is your constraint. Kind of, it's how wise you are. It would not be very wise to kill your party before you have to face the thing that's guarding the treasure you want, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a very wise character, you probably have more self-constraint than a guy who has a 7 wisdom. But lawful evil is good because no matter really how wise you are, you still live by a code that you try to adhere to. Now, you could be very unwise and have a very bad set of codes that don't really. But as long as a character told me in advance what is his ethos, what is his code of conduct that he tries to follow, if he's playing by that code of conduct, even if he does something stupid, but if it's by that code of conduct, I see no problem with it.
And this is all well and good at what you've said and what Matt said. But okay, with lack of better term, let me play devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is assuming that everybody that you're playing with is a relatively mature player.
Yeah.
Now that is the crux of the whole situation, is it not?
But what if you're lawful evil and you haven't screwed the party?
Well, that's all well and good, but I'm talking about the player.
Okay,
not the
then
character.
that's something you can't really control. That's
therein lies the issue. It's not necessarily the characters. It's a lot of it has to do with the players, how they play those characters. Yeah. Now, I fully agree with you on Chad on, as far as having evil characters in the party. Lawful evils will work in a party. Chaotic evils, not so much, or neutral evils. If you're talking a mixed alignment party, a mix of good and evils in the party. Mm-hmm. Now, like I said though, when it comes down to the players, I've experienced over the years, I've had people who said, they're just playing their character, but they do some complete asinine things and screw over the party.
That's when you
they go under the so-called umbrella of, well, I'm just playing my character's alignment.
I'm just playing chaotic neutral.
Yeah, even chaotic neutral, which is basically insane anyway.
Right, but that's when you got to go up to the player and kind of pull them to the side and say, all right, why did you do that? And they say, well, I'm just playing my alignment. I'm chaotic evil, or I'm lawful evil. Right. And I say, all right, fine. Okay, in the case that they're lawful evil, I would probably say, okay, explain to me how what you just did is lawful evil.
Right.
You just totally screwed yourself as well as the rest of the party. Right. That's neither lawful.
That's one of the issues I have with the person who wrote in, because they're assuming that everybody that they're playing with is a mature and insightful type of player, which not every person is.
So really, at the end of the day, I guess, you're right. At the end of the day, the problem is not with the character's alignment.
It's with
the problem is with the player.
Yeah.
Right. It is. It really does.
Yeah. It's like Jim Wampler says, the problem with players is most of them are chaotic neutral.
Yeah.
The player is chaotic neutral playing a lawful evil character. That's the issue.
By the way, I've seen more than my share of people who play lawful good, who are the greediest son of a guns I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I recently had a paladin in my party who he just didn't get it after I don't know how many conversations I had with him. He was the first one to try to jump for a magic item, when they were divvying out the treasure. And I'm like, dude, what part? You don't get lawful good, do you?
You don't get playing a paladin, period.
Yeah, you don't just get to say you're lawful good and then do anything you want.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. So in that situation, I almost say that it doesn't even at that point matter what alignment you're allowing, because if the player could play lawful good, and if they have no idea what they're doing, they're gonna play it the way they are at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're the type of guy who wants all the good treasure, and you can't just call your character lawful good and justify it, you're going to cause just as much party strife as the guy that is chaotic evil.
Yeah, sure do. Sure do.
So I guess I would answer.
Sure enough.
Yeah. If we're only looking at a perfect world scenario where all players are mature, I have absolutely no problem with a good role player taking on. And this goes in another direction too, because this is another issue that comes up, and it came up with the same player, by the way. Sometimes your character gets turned evil against your will, or you want it. And the poster who brought this question up brings up a good point when he says it's role playing. And I always stress this to my players. I say, look, not everything that happens to your character is going to be what you wanted to happen to your character.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I want to see how you role play it. I want to see you roll with it. I want to see you embrace. It's like acting. I want to see you stretch.
Acting.
Yeah, it's acting.
Pull my finger.
Out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. I want to get you out of your comfort zone, and I want to actually see role play this character, because that's the only way your character is ever going to have more than one dimension.
Yeah.
I now have the idea of an interesting sociological experiment to conduct at a gaming convention. Run a module or an adventure or something, but have all the pre-gens be evil and see what happens.
Oh
yeah. Try playing Amber sometime. Which, the people who play Amber obviously like the books that it's based off of. But that's always a fun game if you want to see how an entirely evil party can get along. And it's why a lot of D&D players don't like the game Amber, not just because it's diceless, but they don't like the dynamic of the game, because it's a game where...
What is this diceless game you speak of, sir? Yeah. I do not understand.
Oh, it's great. I'll have to tell you about it sometime.
No. It's wrong.
Most D&D...
it works, actually. It sounds counterintuitive.
It's bad and wrong.
That's a discussion for another time, but I will just say it works. But that said...
No, I disbelieve.
Well, the dynamic, though, of the game, though, is this, that everybody is out to get for themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, just like the real world. Why would I want to play that?
But it's fun because it's so Machiavellian.
Yeah.
That if you can get into it, it's a great time.
Yeah, it sounds like
I'll take your word for it.
Human-Occupied Landfill by White Wolf, except the premise of Human-Occupied Landfill is basically you're all on a penal island. And you're all evil human beings. And, yeah, it's kind of like Escape from New York if you couldn't escape.
Well, Amber's more along the lines of nobody trusts, you trust a stranger before you trust your relative.
Okay.
But that said, because you know that they're out to get their own and they know that you're out to get your own, deals can be made, and you're always having, you got to really think about, you have to plan, and you have to, you could try to make a truce with somebody, but no matter what you tell them, they're going to know there's an ulterior motive you're doing it, but they might still help you because they're now weighing, does their benefit outweigh any danger that they might, that they might be in by working with you? So it's kind of like one of those deals where the other guy's trying to get you, or not get you, but the other guy's trying to benefit himself and not you. But does working with him also benefit you?
It sounds cool, but it has no dice. Anyway, moving along.
Jeez, Nick.
Poker doesn't either, but it's a good game.
I'll take your word for it, but it has no dice. Anyway, sorry, diceless. It's just, I don't know.
You haven't played it, dude?
No.
I first heard of it, I was the same way. But anyway, it's a game, conversation, concept, dynamic, or whatever for another topic. But I brought it up, though, because it is a game where everybody plays evil, and it can be a lot of fun.
Yes.
And not devolve into everybody killing each other.
No killing. Anyway, that wraps up Sage Advice. If you'd like to contact us, rfistaff@gmail.com, 570-865.
Diceless wrong.
42. Nick, be quiet. 4210 is the hotline. And if you'd like to voice your opinion against Nick or against Jeff, please write in with your foe or what is the other one? No, foe or whatever. Against or whatever it's called, just write it.
Pro or con?
Yeah,
pros or con, pro or con. Yeah.
I was gonna say foe or fee.
For or against.
Fum?
Yeah. Or unless you want to remain neutral like Matt and just stay quiet in the background because your microphone's not working. But
I just prefer to think of Matt as a monk or a druid, whatever.
He's not talking right now, so he definitely is a monk.
Taking a vow of silence.
Yes, like I said, in AD&D, the monk I always thought of the friar. So.
Exactly.
Oh, let's not go down that road.
And clerics use blunt weapons only. Let's edit the table manners on note.
Coming to the world.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I had to find one with table manners.
What are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
All right. Here we go, folks, in the table manners And I'm really excited about this one because I am so excited.
Did you wet your pants excited or?
No.
Oh.
Are you feeling a little bit verklempt?
I'm a little verklempt. The Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman. Discuss.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Coffee talk.
Coffee talk. Anyway, we are going to talk about one of my favorite anime shows, which was based off of an actual D&D campaign, Record of Lodoss War.
Yay!
Yay! Love Record of Lodoss War. And anybody who's not familiar with it, just stop the podcast right now. Go to YouTube, type it in, and watch the series because they're free on YouTube now. It's been for a few years. And basically, like I said at the very beginning, it's based off of somebody's D&D campaign. I think that was run sometime, I think in the early 80s in Japan.
86.
Yeah, early mid 80s. And then they hit upon, I guess they tried to sell the idea at the TSR, and TSR declined it.
Well, actually, let's back up a second here, maybe,
Yeah.
Chad, because you lived in Japan, so you might be able to help us out here. They say it was based on a replay. What exactly is a replay considered in Japan?
That one has me a little stumped.
Yeah,
actually.
the replay was like in the first edition DMG, how it had that example of play with the different players saying what their character is doing. That's what a replay was, and it was put into Comptic magazine, and that's where it aired. First was printed, and it gained popularity in that magazine, and it just spun out from there.
Also, it was kind of like how we do now with some people post their game sessions, but
Right.
it was printed out in a magazine.
Yeah, it was a printed actual play, basically.
So it was a transcript of actual play then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Replays are not novels, but transcripts. I'm looking up.
So it was transcripts of game sessions of this campaign. Okay.
Go
Very cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very interesting, yeah.
Very interesting.
The group was SNE, which I think went on to make a lot of video games, didn't they?
Didn't they make a
made
comedy
a-
show on Saturday Night Live? Oh, that was SNL. Never mind.
SNE.
They actually made a lot of RPG stuff, just print. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
They did. They also did. They had the license to print U.S. RPGs in Japan, and I think D&D was one of them for a while. So, but they made their own game system for Lodoss War. But we'll talk about that later. But the premise behind Record of Lodoss War is there's this one planet, and there was this.
It's Earth.
Yeah, it's basically like Earth. But there was this great battle between the god of light, Phallus, and the god of darkness, Phalaris. And I just loved the beginning of the show, and they transcribed it into the role-playing stuff, where it says, Eternity has come to an end, the heavens shook, the armies of Phallus, the supreme god of light, clashed with those of Phalaris, the supreme god of darkness. In the seemingly endless battle, the earth wept, and the oceans trembled in fear. The final battle between the survivors, Marfa, the mother goddess of creation, and Cardis, the malevolent goddess of destruction, echoed to the ends of the earth. And at the climax of the fierce battle, a continent separated, creating a land in which both the goddesses of light and darkness perished like a flame and flickered away. Several thousand years later, the land to the south of the continent of Alakrast had become known as Lodoss, the accursed island. And that's how the show begins.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So, I don't know, Vince, where do you want to kind of go from here to talk about Record of Lodoss War? I guess we could talk about the characters?
Yeah, we could talk about the characters, but the Record of Lodoss, the continent, is where most of the animation takes place, or most of the story will take place. With the good forces will try to go around and stop the evil force coming from the small island of Marmo to the south of the continent of Lodoss, is where the evil witch, I think Grey Witch, right? If I'm correct, the Grey Witch Carla.
Yes.
Yeah, they called her the Grey Witch.
Right. Grey Witch Carla decided that she wanted to rule the land of Lodoss, and decided to convince Ashram, the lead villain character in the animation, to gather up an army with his dark elf companion, Pyrotis. I'm saying that correctly. And they bring an army of goblins and orcs over to the main island of Lodoss to take over the kingdom. So the good side is led by a not so well received knight named Parn.
Parn, yes.
I guess his father was a failure, so they kind of just brushed him off as a failure too. And his whole point of this, not only to lead the ragtag bunch of adventurers, but is also to prove himself to be a qualified knight again in the eyes of the king of mostly of Valis. It's mostly of Valis they focus around as a kingdom inside of Lodoss. There's a bunch of other kingdoms as well. There's a kingdom of flame as well, and they do touch upon that kingdom. And I think they touch upon one more. Maybe Moss was the other one they touched upon.
Yeah, Moss.
Yeah, they talk about a little bit about Valis, at least in the book.
And they do meet King Fawn. Is that Fawn? I think
King Fawn.
Fawn, yeah. Who believes a little bit in Parn, but doesn't really.
Yeah, well, because he knew Parn's father. He was part of he was part of the King Fawn's army, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. What is interesting mostly about this is that Parn has a female high elf with him the whole time called Deedlit.
Deedlit. And
if you kind of read a little bit about the RPG or the manga, you find out that high elves are very rare as opposed to adventuring wise. Mostly half elves, or I think there was another term for it, maybe another. Anyway, high elves are not the ones that usually adventure, but she does go along on the adventure and is the equivalent of a magic user the whole time. They do have I believe another magic user. I can't think of his name offhand. Nick, help me.
Yeah, Deedlit was kind of like a fighter magic user.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I would term her as a fighter magic user because she did have a sword.
We did have the wimpy woodchuck.
Woodchuck, who was a thief.
Was a thief.
You talk like this.
Yeah, real. If you read the actual manga books, he was more of a selfish rat bastard, I want to say.
Yeah.
As opposed to the anime made him into a befumbling fool that was kind of goofy and didn't know how to do his thieving abilities. But in the actual books, he was an amazing thief person.
Yeah, so basically the adventuring party, you got Parn, who's, I guess he might be a paladin, maybe a cavalier.
I'm going to say more of a cavalier.
Yeah, I would say more of a cavalier. Deedlit, who's a high elf, who's a fighter magic user.
Yeah.
Then you have the dwarf. I forget his name.
Is it Gim?
Gim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gim, who's, I would say he's straight off fighter.
Dwarven fighter, yeah.
He's a dwarven fighter. You have the one cleric who worships the goddess of light. And
then there's Slain.
Who's also another magic user, but I think he's more of a, I don't know. I kind of, from reading it and watching the anime, he's more like a sorcerer than a magic user of anything else.
Yeah, because there's 3 different types of magic, and we'll talk about that later in the show.
Yeah.
So, because they have their typical sorcerers, they have their spirit magic and their divine magic. So,
yeah, well, you have your divine magic, which is kind of like what your clerics use, and so you have. But their sorcery, I guess, I don't know, it would translate into the D&D system.
Well, yeah, you could find later editions with these certain character classes and just pull them back for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For doing this. What's interesting is it's its own land. It has its own monetary system as well. I think it's called royal pieces for its monetary system.
Mm-hmm.
And it has its own kingdom set up, which we can give you a link to the map of the land of Lodoss. I do find it very interesting that you can definitely run a campaign easily in here, even though you've never read the actual manga or witnessed the anime. You can run something in here, and it's pretty easy because the kingdoms are pretty much set up as they are based on the map, and you can just pull in whatever you want based off the wiki information and just plan it however you want. It's kind of like playing in the Greyhawk area. Maybe not as much information as Greyhawk, I probably think.
I think one of the reasons why I like the series so much was it just fits so well into the D&D concept, I mean, besides being originally a D&D campaign, there's just such a great high story arc with the whole anime, which is fantastic. You can get so much inspiration from that. It's just amazing. There's so much detail to it. We can do several episodes just on the anime, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just saying to people, you got to watch the episodes. Watch the first few, and then you're like, now I can see why people dig this, why it's so cool.
Not sure what else.
I'm not sure what else to say, but as far as like in the book, one of the things I like, if you're going to port this over into AD&D or D&D, and I think it would work in either games, but if we're talking about AD&D first edition, is you can use all your standard races and classes. Might be some slight variations if you want to stick with them.
Well, you might want to grab the our Record of Lodoss War Eternal Edition RPG.
Yes.
Which was made by, I can't think of his name offhand, but it was for the Fusion system, which I've never really heard of. Chad, you said it was closer to Cyberpunk?
Yeah, it was Artel Soren, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and he did Cyberpunk, and it used the interlock rules, and so does this game, Lodoss, Record of Lodoss War by Fusion, uses also the interlock rules, which if you've ever played Cyberpunk, you might be familiar with the whole life path, format where when you create a character, you also create their entire life path.
I was going to mention that. I like that
enemies.
One part.
Yeah, it's. I love doing it because it adds so much depth to the character. It's a fun way to do it. Mm-hmm. It takes more time, obviously, to create the character, but when your character is created, you're not just a fighter elf. Mm-hmm. You're a fighter elf with an entire back history.
Yeah.
Which really helps you play that character and know who that character is.
Yeah, at least gives you a start. Especially, I would say this is even really good for you can port this to any D&D game if you have someone who's completely new to the game. Maybe they're just not familiar with the whole role-playing concept. So you can use this whole life path part and like at least give them a basis so you can roll off and say, okay, what's your basic personality? Oh, you are casual and carefree, but what do you value the most? Your teacher who taught you how to be a sorcerer. And what's your philosophy of life? And go on in there. At least that gives them a starting point of how these flesh out the personality of their character.
Yeah, I actually just for grins, I decided to go through that life path again, and with this game, and I came up with a character that is friendly and outgoing. He values himself the most. And he believes his philosophy is purity is honesty, or honesty is purity, or something like that. So he had a former lover who just didn't work out with, and her family hated him. And and these are just little benchmarks in his life that you can fill in. But it really helps as far as developing a kind of a multifaceted character.
And the only thing I would say, just be careful with this. If you make sure whatever you choose kind of jives with the alignment of your character,
Mm-hmm. And one other thing I was going to bring up too. You guys were talking about why the world works so well. And, I thought, for instance, Beld, he's not just a bad guy. He has a history, and he wasn't always a bad guy. He used to work for King Fawn before he killed King Fawn. Yeah. But in this case, you can tell, at least I think when I read this, that the people who created Lodoss, the whole history of it, they were influenced to some degree by Tolkien, because Beld's history and how he became evil has a lot of similarities to Isildur, who was a good king up until the point where he actually gained possession of the One Ring. Yes. In the case of Beld, he killed this very evil demon king, the demon king of Marmo, but was bathed in its blood as a result, and the blood is what tainted him and made him evil. So it's like the characters are not just one dimensional. He's evil.
There's some very intricate backstories going on.
One more time.
Yeah, but Parn actually even you can kind of draw an allegory to Aragorn, who's got the because he's
you could
So I mean, there's a lot of fallen people redeeming themselves or fallen people embracing the dark.
Yeah.
So,
well, like I said, is like there's some really intricate backstories going on here, because even the ones like Carla, the Grey Witch Carla, she has an intricate backstory because she was one of the original 6, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was. She's
along with Ward,
Lodoss, isn't she?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
she's playing both sides, but towards a definite end, and it might appear at first that she's evil, but in reality, she's also helping the heroes
in a roundabout sort of way.
So yeah, it's a game that basically I always enjoy games where they write a history to it that again gives the major characters that are going to be seen in this game, the major NPCs, it makes them more than what they appear to be.
Another thing I thought that was interesting, I guess kind of go along with some differences between like the races, for example, is the Dark Elves are a little bit different than what you have typically in AD&D. In Lodoss, they have dark skin, they have the black or silver hair, but despite their reputation, this is coming from the book, not all Dark Elves are evil.
No.
In actuality, most of them are indifferent and only fight to survive in the hostile land of Marmo. But
despite the fact that they have a bad reputation,
yes. So not all the Dark Elves on Lodoss are bad. It's just overall the general feeling is the Dark Elves are evil. So there's a little difference there. You still have half elves, and then you have a new race, the Grass Runners.
Yeah, and they remind me a lot of gnomes.
Yeah, and
I think they're more like halflings, in my opinion.
Well, I thought they would be when I first saw that. My first thought was, oh, okay, they've renamed halflings. But when I started reading about them, they're a lot like dwarves. They're shorter, though. They have pointed ears, and they attribute themselves more to the world of fairy.
Yeah,
which to me says gnome all the way.
Yeah, they even in this book, the role playing book, they say they're kind of like half dwarves because they think they might be the product of dwarf human intermarriage.
Yeah.
And Grass Runners, one of the character classes they could be is Ranger. So that's one difference if you want to bring that into a campaign. One to make it different is the Grass Runners, this type of race, one of the classes they could be is Rangers. So, and you have this other one. This one's kind of confusing. It's the Hayuri, I guess. They're not a race, but it's a curse.
This kind of jumps more into the next segment anyway, so
yeah.
Why don't we head into our DM rules?
Okay.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, but I have a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
And now we go into DM rules, and we're actually going to go into running the campaign in the world of Lodoss Wars. I mean, we've hit on some of the history, and it's really rich, and you can dip into whatever part of it you want, because there's many different eras of Lodoss Wars. I mean, there's the Age of Chaos, Age of Magic, Age of Enlightenment, First Age of Heroes, War of Heroes. So, I mean, this time spans many, many hundreds, thousands of years. And you could plop it in, your characters into any one of them. But when it comes to actually like putting PCs in it, a lot of the standard classes will just fit. I mean, there's fighters, there's barbarians, you have your magic users. I mean, with the 3 different types of magic, you have your sorcerer, which I would just call a magic user. I wouldn't even get bogged down into thinking what we consider a sorcerer.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when you watch the anime, they're still going through the motions. They're casting their spells, whether or not they get it from innate or a book. For the purpose of this, just say it's a magic user that uses the sorcery magic. Divine magic.
Yeah, for the most part, they just call them mages.
Right. And then for the divine magic, that's your cleric. Now, the spirit magic, that's where, okay, how do we want to go with this? I mean, I would almost consider like the spirit magic some sort of like shamanistic, so maybe like make it a druid
magic in a way. Yeah.
Give it a druid flavor, because they seem to be very in touch with
tastes
nature.
like druid.
Yes. Yeah, because that's what...
It's very woody.
Woody.
It's got a nutty flavor.
Yeah, because that's what Deedlit actually is. She's one of the spirit magic users, so...
Maybe she's a fighter druid.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the clerics are called priests, but again, it also has in captions that they're also called clerics. And you have some other classes too. That you have a knight, which essentially could be seen as either a paladin or a cavalier.
Right.
You have a soldier, which is actually differentiated between that and the fighter. But a soldier is more like your more official, member of a guard or something. They tend to be part of a standing army generally.
Thief is
you
a
have
thief.
Mercenaries. Thieves are thieves. Rangers are rangers. But you also have merchants. And you also have
sages.
commoners. You have commoners.
Ooh,
and
I want to
noblemen.
play a merchant. That sounds fascinating.
Or you could play a nobleman, too.
Yeah.
Nobleman could be actually kind of cool. Nobleman, actually, that would probably be your closest equivalent to a cavalier. I would think. Again, it depends, because it's a nobleman, and you can really run that in you have a multitude of directions you can do this in.
You have a plethora.
A plethora, exactly. If you're transferring this over to Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to be using the Dungeons and Dragons classes anyway. At that point, now it comes down to something we had discussed in an earlier episode when we were talking about fighters, actually. And that was how there are 10 different ways, at least, that you can translate a fighter into a player character. And they're simply, in the fusion system, they're simply mapping those various ways out into their own classes. But if you wanted to, say, transfer this game over to D&D, you could play a fighter who was a nobleman. You could play a mage who was a nobleman. You could play a commoner soldier who was a fighter. You could do a lot of this stuff because you're still going to be using the Dungeons and Dragons classes in this situation, but the transfer should be relatively painless.
Yeah.
Books to suggest to use. I was looking at that over the other day, and I was thinking, then using the core books, of course, Unearthed Arcana, and I would probably borrow some things from Dragonlance just to add a little more flavor into things.
Yeah, you probably could.
Yeah.
Could be very fun for doing that with the Knights, because the Knights have different orders. Dragonlance goes over the Knights of Solamnia quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I definitely use the Unearthed Arcana because you have barbarians as an actual class in the fusion system. And obviously, why reinvent the wheel? Now, if you don't want to use Unearthed Arcana, again, we covered this and we talked about fighters. You could simply be a fighter who is portrayed as a barbarian. So you could go that route also.
Right. It's really, since this originally was a D&D campaign, things cross over really nice.
Yeah, it just goes over almost seamlessly.
Right. Since the roots are already there, at that point, it's strictly the window dressing that gives it that Record of Lodoss War feel. It's
your interpretation of your class.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for playing this game, it's focused more on the story and the setting, and then with the D&D classes thrown in, because they fit. I mean, yeah, there's some other races that don't really quite have analogous comparisons in D&D, like the Tabbit, a bipedal rabbit race who travel around the world. Unless you guys happen to know of a bipedal rabbit in D&D.
I do in Gamma World.
Yeah, in Gamma World, there'd be lots of those.
Hoop. Yeah.
But there's also the Lilla Draken, which are bipedal dragon folk. Okay, there's your Draconians. Boom.
How about the Oriental Adventures? You can borrow from that one race in there that can...
Oh, the one that that was a duck in your game.
Yeah, you can...
The Hingyoke.
Yes.
Hingyokai.
There you go.
Transform themselves into a bipedal or a full whatever creature.
Right.
So maybe that's the race you could borrow from for inspiration.
Right, yeah. Borrow from that and just say, instead of having the ability to transform, they're just permanently in that form. There you go. You now have your rabbits.
The only other ones I'm looking at is like Merchant and Nobleman as a class. I'm trying to think of how that would translate as far as like hit dice and saving throws.
I'd probably put them, the closest equivalent maybe would be maybe a second edition bard or a rogue as far as hit dice goes.
Right.
Because they have they're a merchant, but they have the ability to fight also. So they probably hit dice. In saves, I would probably put a merchant under use the same rules as for a thief for hit dice and saves. For a nobleman, might use a fighter because noblemen were taught to fight.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And they practiced all the time because they had nothing else to do.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And basically, I think thieves, as far as hit dice and saves go, are about the closest you're going to get to just your average non-class NPC type character. Because thieves aren't. I mean, they steal and everything, but outside of that, they're not a fighter. They're not a magic user. They're not a ranger. They're not a priest or a cleric. They're just a guy who knows how to steal or to some degree haggle and bargain, which is exactly what a merchant is.
Yeah, and then some of the thief skills you can kind of make an argument that they'll fit with a merchant when it comes to examining magic items and things of that nature. They're going to stumble across those in their merchant travels, and they might have taught themselves a thing or two on how to use this wand or wands or whatever. So.
Oh yeah. Maybe they're in the business of selling magic items, and they have to know a little bit about what they're selling.
Right, and also might have them know some. They can know lore of different, like, oh, well, this item is from this part of the world because of this, kind of like the Antiques Roadshow.
Oh yeah, and when you think about it. It brings to mind the Silk Road from real history.
Yes.
The merchants were at the time of, if you go back in time to at least the Renaissance, the merchants were probably one of the most traveled people there were.
Right. Yeah, they weren't the first to go, but they went a lot more than those explorers when it came to revisiting places.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one blazed a path to the east. Then there were many merchants who went east to purchase spices that they could then bring back and sell. If anything, they were probably the prime passage. They were probably the people who frequented those routes the most.
Right. And as for like what weaponry I would let them use, I would maybe let them pick like a weapon that perhaps in their travels they were taught to use. I could see them traveling to a distant land, and then through, like, as they start bartering and whatnot, they see the culture and they see someone using this exotic weapon, and they're like, huh, Teach me, and I will give you these shinies from another land.
Right, and they would have to obviously be able to defend themselves when they were making these long treks.
Exactly. And
they would have been prime targets for bandits.
Yeah, and as they advance, I could see maybe giving them the followers of perhaps even like a fighter, how a fighter gets like a small army as they advance because he's a merchant. He has the money to pay the mercenaries.
Right. They would hire a band of soldiers or fighters to protect their precious cargo.
Exactly.
So yeah, I definitely could see that you could. It shouldn't be too hard to transplant the character classes of Lodoss War into D&D.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was looking at some of the other one, like some of the other like classes and I guess races. The one I kind of touched on earlier was Hayuri, which is it's not really a race or anything, but they say it's a curse. Basically, it's a berserk. Basically, someone going into berserker rage. You have this Hayuri spirit in you, the spirit of fury, and you go into a berserker rage and I guess there's a couple ways you can handle that into the game. One way you can handle it to where if you want to get this curse, if you want to buy it, because you get certain things added to, when you attack and everything. But I was thinking probably the easiest thing is just make the berserker class available.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know,
look in the monster manual and get the rules for how they handle berserkers.
Yeah, but I was thinking like, you can handle it as if this is an available class for a viable player character class. Because, remember you got, who was it they had, what the heck was his name? Who was a berserker? Orson. Thank you. Had to come to me. But there's one character in the second series of Lodoss War Tales of the Heroic Knight is Orson, and he has berserker rage. And so you can either have it.
He can kind of control it, though, doesn't he? He's not. It's not so much a curse for him.
But it was probably, in my opinion, the best depiction of how berserker rage should be handled in a role playing situation, in a role playing game.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool how they depicted it.
Yeah.
And I guess you can either play as. You can have almost any class. I wouldn't say clerics or magic users should be able to get this, but your fighters, your cavaliers, maybe be able to go into a berserker rage, or you make a berserker class available to play.
Yeah, I could see treating it kind of like psionics, where you roll on a chart to see has your character been cursed. Mm-hmm. And then no matter what class, I would even let clerics and magic users have it, because what if all of a sudden in the middle of casting a ritual, they raged? What happened?
See, I don't know if I would.
I guess it depends on.
I would. I like that idea because, I mean, the whole idea of it, most gamers who read about the Huri, they're going to be like, oh, cool. I want that because I'm going to be, not only I'm going to play a human, but I'm going to be better than a human because I'm going to get berserker bonuses. But I would say, look, what's one of the first things it says about them? It's a curse. It's not supposed to be a good thing. It's supposed to be a bad thing.
Right. I would maybe have them make some sort of wisdom save in times where of great stress, perhaps like the party, they see a friend getting their butt kicked, and instead of taking a deep breath, casting their magic, doing what's most effective, they fail their wisdom save, and next thing you know, they're raging and just flailing it.
See, but here's the thing, though. I don't think you could have it for clerics and magic users because the amount of discipline and concentration need to be.
But it depends on when they were touched. Perhaps they already were a cleric.
But here's the thing. It's not class specific. It's a curse that humans get. And it would be a bad thing. You're absolutely right, Nick. If you are a mage or magic user and you happen to be afflicted by this curse, it's, it is a bad thing. It is a curse, and you may fail on some of your when you most need to cast that spell. You might fail because you berserk and you don't have the concentration. You lose the concentration.
I don't know if I would handle it.
Hurts, but the point being is I would do it simply because I want to stress to the player that this is not supposed to be a good thing. This is supposed to be a bad thing. And again, I want to see you stretch as a role player and take this curse, which in this case is really a curse, and I want to see how you handle it.
I don't know. I would actually make it where I would have a berserker class. So if anybody chose to play that.
But then in most cases I find is, and this is one of the issues one of the issues I have with the barbarian class, which normally I don't have too many issues with the barbarian class out of Unearthed Arcana, but this was one, was that every barbarian wants to be a berserker. And they refuse to see it or role play it as a bad thing. They love it because, I can take damage and I can deal out more damage. And I'm like, yeah, and you might be attacking your friends. Oh, I don't care. As long as I'm kicking butt, and I don't want my players to see what is seen by the mainstream society as a curse as a good thing. I want them to see it as a bad thing. And I would make, that's why I think I would probably do what Matt was just saying and have it not be a class, but something you roll for. Everybody makes a roll, and it's not something you want to come up positive.
Yeah, I could also see, if you wanted to make it a class, have the character first pick what class they were, then they got touched by the curse fallen.
What you could do is, there is a berserker class.
It's in later editions, though.
Actually, there was an October 76 issue number 3 of Dragon Magazine. It was actually as a non-player character class, an NPC class.
Right, but didn't the barbarian in our I don't have my Unearthed Arcana on me, right? But I'm pretty sure barbarians could go berserk, couldn't they?
Yeah, but you could port over. I think in second edition there was a berserker class.
Yeah,
I think it's in the Complete Fighters book.
Yes, it was.
Or I know in Hackmaster I'm looking at right here, there is a berserker class, which is pretty much based off the same thing.
So either source will work fine.
Yeah.
Or you could just go to the monster manual. And it's
not if you're going to play it as a class.
Right. Not if you're going to
don't have level progression or anything in the monster manual.
Well, you could make one up.
Yeah, but I'm lazy. I'm a lazy DM. I've always said that.
So I guess it kind of comes down to how the GM and the players view the berserker. I mean, is it something that you'd want to play as? Would you see it as a benefit, much like magic is a benefit to a magic user, or would you see it the way I see it as akin to lycanthropy, which you don't want? Even though, hey, lycanthropy gives you some.
In that Dragon Magazine issue, they did address it as like lycanthropy.
I also see the class as a good opportunity for an experienced role player to get into it.
Yeah.
I don't think a new person jumping into the game would be good for that. Anyone that's experienced wants something different to, spice up their gameplay because they're bored with the usual. Would have fun playing that class and how to experience it, how to, express how they feel and how to act out the character would be perfect.
I think that's what I mean. Yeah, there's two different ways you could do it. You could treat it as a either one, like as a class I would do it, or you could treat it as it's a trait. It's a cursed trait that your character has, regardless of either your race or the class of your character. So yeah, I guess you could go either way with that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I guess this all ties back to what we talked about earlier when we talked about evil player or evil characters, and
evil players. I know a few of those.
Yeah, I know a few of those. I know a few berserker players too. But anyway,
I do too.
I think it ties back to this whole thing of how you treat it is going to have a lot to do with the players in your group. If they're relatively new players, not necessarily immature players, but relatively new players, but you think that they have the maturity. I mean, I know plenty of people who could step up to the table for the first time, but they would be fine if you told them, well, this is a bad thing. I just want to see how you do it. They'd probably do a good job. I know plenty of experienced players who have no maturity whatsoever and simply want a power game, and they would love it and totally abuse it. It comes down to your players. You have to look at your players and say, how are they going to handle it? Yep. If you think that you're already having enough problems as it is with your players, I would probably just get rid of it altogether. If you thought that they're good players, but they're just not experienced enough as role players to truly make something cool out of what is probably bad, then I would get rid of it as an affliction.
And play it as a class?
Right. But if I thought I had some good players in the party who really knew how to stretch and were really not so interested in kicking butt, but were more interested in developing a character, with more than one facet, then I'd have it as an affliction, and I would let the player, because I know players that you could give them.
So you're saying my way, you couldn't develop it as a character?
It seems more like in your fashion, though, it's more of something that's nice to have, and I want it to be more of something that they don't choose, that's thrust upon them.
Well, no, it's just what class you want to play. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm not saying the way you're doing it is wrong. I'm saying, it could be very cool to say, I want to be a berserker. In that case, I would hope that the player, though, was good enough that even though they chose it rather than having it afflicted on them, they would still treat it in the way that it's regarded by the character mainstream.
Sure, absolutely.
Not revel in it.
Well, I don't know. We'll and I guess, again, we just agree to disagree.
It's like, you meet an NPC, he says he has a cure for your berserk rage. And no, that's all right.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking of is, like I said, I'm a lazy DM. I'm just going to pick what's easiest for me to run. And I'm like, I don't want to take the time. Okay, what's going to happen when this berserker rage happens? Okay, how's it going to affect his stats, his combat, and everything? Well, I could just look at the berserker class. I'm like, oh, okay, they could just play it as a berserker, and there it's all right there. Boom, done.
But what if it's an affliction, and if they end up with that affliction, now you transfer the berserker class to them? Okay, say.
Well, I would do it that way. It's either I don't know.
Yeah. What if they develop this during the course of gameplay?
There you go. That is very possible, the way it's described in this.
Yeah, I could also just see the players. They're going about their day. They're dealing with a merchant who happens to be inflicted with this, and he just flies out into a fit of rage against them. You could have just some really random, explosive, unexpected encounters with this.
The guy afflicted by Tourette syndrome.
Exactly.
So, like, I can have an old lady who can fly into a berserker rage and totally thrash the party. Is that what you were saying?
Starts throwing cats at them.
Right.
This berserker class is
gives a whole new meaning to crazy old lady down the street.
Exactly. That's why they're crazy.
Because they throw cats at people.
Now, the only thing with that is then you have to stat out what is the damage done by a cat projectile.
Well, that's easy. 1d3.
Well, what if the big fat cat, like Garfield or something?
D4.
Right.
What about the claws on the cat? Could be deadly too.
Yeah. Well, no, you have to. Depending on how well you hit the cat will will stick on you like barbs.
What if the cat's dead and not alive?
And that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Anyway. I think we beat this one to a dead cat.
Yeah, I would end it by simply saying, you're the GM, you figure out how you like to view it and how you think your party can handle it.
And that's the thing. You have lots of options here. And I don't think any DM is going to go wrong using Lodoss as a campaign setting for AD&D. I think there's such a huge amount of information.
It's been even touch upon it a little bit.
Yeah, and there's so much in there. You just got to watch the series if you haven't watched it yet, so you can get the full idea, the flavor of the whole campaign setting.
we did talk about this a long time ago back in Volume 1 when Jason was around and wanted to follow up on it again because so many people have asked. It's just still so much to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, we could do several shows on it. I mean, seriously. Just the breakdown on the different classes and the different, not the different classes, but the different characters of the series and the different countries on the island continent of Lodoss.
I definitely would like to know an insider on the time why TSR declined picking this up.
Yeah.
I mean, was there any...
Probably because they saw it as competition to their own Saturday morning cartoon.
Well, if you
no, it wasn't. They wanted to make it into a campaign setting.
Yeah, they applied for a campaign setting via TSR, and they declined it. I think it was because it was during the rain years.
Yeah, because...
everything.
Group SNE made the, Record or Lodoss War Companion and released it in 1989. So that's what, and the novels came out in 88. So you have to figure by the time the popularity got really big, it was in that Lorraine late 80s, early 90s, second edition.
And what were they pushing then for our campaign worlds? Forgotten Realms,
right?
Dragonlance a little bit more.
Dragonlance, yeah. Oh, it was like almost Forgotten Realms all the way because they wanted to divorce themselves from.
Yeah, you almost know that they were probably looking at it and saying, "Why would we want to promote another campaign world when we're focusing so much on the one we already have?"
Yeah,
right. And then also, they weren't big on licensing other people's stuff. So if they couldn't buy it outright and control everything, I doubt they would want it anyway.
But by God, Lorraine wanted to make that Buck Rogers game.
Yeah. When you're licensing it from yourself, that's different.
Exactly right.
And we did get a Buck Rogers game that no one cared about.
Yeah.
Although I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Colin runs a great Buck Rogers game, and again, you can take pretty much any game if you're a really creative GM and able to tweak the rules right. You can come up with a really cool game.
I disagree. There are some that just cannot be fixed.
I'm trying to think of a game that I know of that just can't be fixed.
I can tell you right now.
What?
Fatal.
I don't think I know that game.
You don't want to. It stands for From Another Time, Another Land. Just look it up, and you'll say, oh my God, why? I want to wash my body now.
I own it.
It's just that wrong.
In the shower, still position, getting wet.
Yeah, you'll say, "Oh no, I." Not only will you want to wash your eyes out with with soap, but you'll question if there is actually a God.
Will the song of the crying game be playing in the background?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, gee,
yeah. It's that bad. It's that bad.
As everybody in the audience is now looking up this game.
Yeah.
Well,
this you're going to say to yourself, why did I download this? Why am I reading this? This is sick.
Well, back on the subject of Lodoss, so I'll say as far as a setting goes, comparing it to your traditional D&D setting is a little bit in the same vein, I guess, as comparing Eberron to it, because it is different. It's not. I mean, it is a little different. It's got its own flavor. Lodoss is instead of merging steampunk into D&D, you're merging manga into D&D, which, in my opinion, right? If they had retried to market this, if Wizards had marketed this, they could probably still do it. And it would be a huge success because we are, I believe, still in a big manga craze. But, I mean, maybe 5 years ago, oh, my gosh.
Talk to my daughter, Anna, who's huge anime manga.
My daughter as well. Elizabeth loves it.
They need to talk then.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really, if you like manga and you like D&D, this is just made for you.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely right.
There isn't much of an update for the manga actually since 2004, it looks like. As far as I could see, as far as you want to buy it, I don't think they've updated it in a while. Maybe because of, lack of sales, I'm not sure. But the last thing I think that came out was No, actually, I don't know. Legend of Crystania. Probably that's the last one that came out.
Did that get animated yet? Did that become anime?
They had a movie for that one. Yeah.
Oh wow, I gotta watch that.
It wasn't that good.
Oh well. Still, I'll watch it because I'm a completist.
Well, I definitely recommend trying it out. If you're into manga and you're into D&D, I mean, obviously you're into D&D, or you wouldn't be really listening to this show. But if you're looking for a new setting and you happen to also be a big manga fan, I recommend trying it out. Especially if your players, and again, I stress, if your players are not into manga, I don't know. It's meant to be kind of imagined in Big Eyes, Small Mouth,
Yes. Good game.
Fist of the North Star, think of it's supposed to be manga. But in D&D world, in its own world.
I do apologize. There is one update based on the whole series. There's an online game coming out.
Oh.
It was updated on 2012. They're in the process of making the Lodoss online game.
Yep, the Lodoss MMORPG in development.
In worst case, you know what? Find out what's out there on the internet, and another source for ideas for DMs and players too.
Yeah, definitely. Or pick up the manga.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
enjoy.
And it does have some really good detail on the world. As far as guilds, it goes into great detail on guilds, the various guilds you can join. Goes into good detail. It has some really good information on the weapons. It talks about steel shaft arrows, and it takes some of the arrows that you could easily find the rules on how to use these weapons simply by going to your Oriental Adventures book, because they have the various types of arrows also. So you have your damages already set up for D&D.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there you have it, wrapped up in a little tiny shell.
Ghost in the Shell? Now we're talking other anime.
Oh, we're back into manga.
Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, and anime too. Great series.
There is a lot of really good animes and manga that you can really rip off from.
Oh, heck yeah.
There was one a couple of years ago, I kind of found it by accident. It was The Legend of Ashland, I think it was called. I'll have to look that one up and put it in.
I just always think, if you play this game, I think I would have to do this. Every time, if one of the fighters had a really powerful magic sword, every time throughout the gaming session, the blade of the sword would just increasingly get longer. Because if you ever see Vampire Hunter D,
oh my God.
Lots of speed lines. Don't forget the speed lines.
Bigger.
Another good one is the heroic legend of, I'm going to say it's Arslan. Arslan, that's how it was pronounced. Arslan, that's right. Another great anime, kind of in the style of Record of Lodoss.
Okay.
I want to check that.
I've also heard, was it? There's another one. Rune
Soldier?
Rune Soldier. I heard was pretty good.
There's another Berserk. If you look up another anime, Berserk is another one that's close to the style of Lodoss.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rune Soldier is more comedic though. So if you want to go,
I like that stuff too.
Yeah, one of my favorite animes ever is XL Saga, which is just the most wacky, bizarre thing you will ever watch.
Dirty Pair is another one.
Yeah.
And all these things you can just go on YouTube and type it in, and there's tons of links for all these things. You can find almost any anime on YouTube at this point now.
Right. That, and if you can't find it there, go to Crunchyroll. It's basically...
Oh, yeah, I know Crunchyroll.
Yeah, it's basically like a Hulu / Netflix for anime.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah, it's a pay for a site, or it's kind of like a free site almost?
It's like free pay, kind of like Hulu is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
If you have Netflix, they have a lot of anime on.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
They have Full Metal Alchemist. They have they have a ton.
Afro Samurai.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love Afro Samurai. He was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Samurai Jack was another one of my favorites too.
Well, I think that does it.
Yep, let's put a nail in the coffin on this.
That's all I got to say about that.
Right. Nick,
thanks, Forrest.
It's Christopher Walken have to end this show.
Whatever, Lodoss, wow.
And on that note, I'm going to say keep it original, keep it old school, and good night, everybody.
The Roll for Initiative podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. You can visit us at rfipodcast.com or contact us on our forums at osrgaming.org or even by calling us at 570-865-4210. This podcast is produced for entertainment purposes only. All other uses are prohibited. And remember, if your magic missile spell doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.